G'day legends, I hope you're all fantastic. On today's video, I want to talk about the guitar gear that I used the most in 2025, gear I actually use. Now, I've done a separate best of 2025 for new gear that was released that I demoed, which you can check out using the link in the video description. You can also check out my Patreon, the music that I make with my band Ragdoll, and my free cabinet IR, as well as my block libraries over on Gumroad. All of those things go to supporting what I do here on the channel. So let's dive straight in, and we'll begin with the really sexy stuff, the guitars. And this year, this guitar was probably the number one, my Cilia Bell'Aurora. Not only does it look absolutely stunning, it sounds and plays incredibly well. Made by Charles Cilia here in Sydney, Australia. I say here in Sydney, Australia. I'm in Perth, Western Australia. Charles is on the other side of the country in Sydney, but it counts as here, even though Australia is a big place. I digress though. This was the guitar that when I had to go and do a gig, was the first guitar I would always go to grab on there. I did a full season of Club Cabaret at Perth Fringe in Perth earlier in the year, so 40 shows, and I basically always had this guitar on me. I didn't play it for every single show because I was at home. I got to cycle through a bunch of different guitars on that show, but it was kind of always there as an option. At the moment, I do have it set up in drop C because it's definitely my go-to Ragdoll guitar now on here. It stays in tune incredibly well. It's nice and light, but still balanced. And for me, I'm about 185 centimeters, so around 6'1". When I stand up and play this guitar, it doesn't look like a ukulele on me. Furthermore, I got to do not one, but 2 gigs at Perth Stadium this year, one playing in the middle of the pitch for the Soccer World Cup qualifier between Australia and Japan, and another where I played on the roof for the start of the Ashes. And this was the guitar that I played. And it just made me feel comfortable, made me feel safe when I was in that very foreign environment. And then when I heard it coming out of that gigantic PA, it just sounds right. And it sounds so incredible in a cranked up live room. I love it here in the studio, but I found that it really comes to life performing live. And whether if that's because of the semi-hollow construction, there's a little bit of extra vibration going on and passing into the guitar. But this is a guitar that when I'm in the zone live, just absolutely goes with me. I love the way it plays, I love the way it looks, and I love the way that it sounds. Furthermore, it's made here in Australia by one of our finest luthiers. So that's the number one, the Cilia Bell'Aurora. Next up is my Rubato Guitars Lassie, and this was on my most used gear of 2024 as well, with good reason, because this thing pretty much travels everywhere with me. You can see it is constructed in a very unique way. It's made from a carbon fiber monocoque, so there's no joins, nothing is glued to anything else on there. Essentially, they make a shell or a frame, they wrap it in carbon fiber and bake it at high heat. Has a Richlight fingerboard with 24 stainless steel frets. There's lumen layers on here. This is in many ways the mirror image of the Bell'Aurora, where it's incredibly thin, still really, really light, but it is very Spartan and minimalist looking, which I love. Furthermore, the action on here is maybe the lowest of any guitar I've ever played, but it still has no fretboard because of the construction. This thing does not move under any temperature or atmospheric changes. So I often throw this into a soft case straight onto a plane, goes way up into the atmosphere and gets chilled right down. I've played it through the Australian summer here, and I almost never have to tune this thing during a gig, which I absolutely love. It also helps that it plays and sounds really well, even acoustically. You know, it's so zingy and loud. So this is a good one if I'm on tour or I'm traveling somewhere and I just want to play a bit of guitar, but I don't want to plug in. I can get plenty of volume out of this one. It's almost like playing a disembodied fretboard on here. This one just kind of hangs on your body like it's not even there. And this guitar, for those reasons, is why it gets played so much and why I travel with it so much. One guitar that I played a lot in 2024 that I didn't play quite as much in 2025 is my PRS DGT. Now, that's through no fault of its own. I still love that guitar. It plays and sounds incredible. I just found myself reaching for other instruments before that one this year. I did take it out for a few shows, and when I did, I was reminded of how much I really enjoy playing it. Told me at the end of 2024 that a Strat would have been on this most used list for 2025, I don't think I would have believed you, but this new Fender Ultralux Vintage has been around the world and back with me, and I've been using it so much in the studio here. I even used it to record all the lead guitars on the Max Cruise single that I played on called Redline. It's just a fantastic playing, sounding, and looking Strat in the correct Fiesta red color. I love that it's an HSS configuration on there, so I can get a lot of versatility out of it. And the neck single coil in particular gets pretty close to my old 1977 Strat that I play all the time. This is just a lot lighter, easier to play, and it's got a lot of old guitar mojo about it. While it is a new production instrument, it does feel played in, and I really like the kind of light checked nitro that's going on here. I took this guitar with me along with my Rubato Lassie when I went to the UK to do Edinburgh Fringe over there, and I played it for pretty much every show over there with the trem set up to float. Again, another thing I never used to do. I was always too terrified of something going wrong, but for that show, this is definitely the vibe. And a red Strat in this color with these specs always kind of reminds me of Gary Moore's old Strats. So I used this on the Gary Moore 5 Killer Riffs video that I did, and I play it pretty much every day in here. It's just become my go-to Strat. To round out the guitars, my Les Paul Custom unexpectedly made the list. Again, I played this a lot across a bunch of different gigs for the Club Cabaret gig. I did a couple of Ragdoll gigs with this, and I did a few Whitesnake tribute gigs with this. And I was initially very hesitant to use this in a live setting because it weighs close to 11 pounds in the old language. And I thought, well, if some of my other guitars, which are nowhere near that heavy, give me shoulder pain, surely this thing would absolutely buckle me. But I find it hangs incredibly well on a strap, and I didn't get any shoulder pain or hand pain when playing this live. And I suspect maybe because the body is so heavy, it's moving the center of mass closer to the middle of my body, so it hangs a little bit better. Furthermore, if I have to demo a pedal or an amp here for the channel, this is the first guitar that I'd reach for. So while I played it live a bunch, I again probably play this guitar every single day in the studio, and it's got some burst buckers in it. I think a burst bucker 1 and 2 combo, which sound incredible. A lot of people don't believe that they're burst buckers. They think they're a lot hotter. This guitar, again, unplugged, just kind of rings. It has all the usual Les Paul annoyances on there with the tuning stability. It's nowhere near as good as any of my other guitars that I've mentioned in here, but for a Les Paul, it definitely hangs with the best guitars that I've got in here. And it's a black Les Paul Custom. You gotta love a black Les Paul Custom. Now, guitars are obviously only one part of the tone generating process, and it will surprise absolutely no one who's followed the channel for a while to know that my Fractal FM9 definitely got the most use out of any of my other gear this year. Last year, I did well over 120 gigs with this thing. I think I probably did about 80 or 90 this year, so not quite as prolific as 2024, but same unit. I have these guards on here by K&K Shields. I have some foot switch toppers from the Home Musician. They're linked in the video description as well. But yeah, basically one preset with 8 scenes for the club cabaret gigs, 1 preset with maybe 5 or 6 scenes for the ragdoll gigs, and I'm good to go. Furthermore, it's got so much horsepower on here that I can run a lot of my really effect-heavy patches from my Axe FX3 on this, and just been incredibly consistent. I haven't had any issues with it. I absolutely love this thing. Yes, it is a big chunky boy, and I didn't use it on every single gig I did this year. I definitely used my FM3 for a couple, and then I've recently done a few with the AM4, which is a lot more compact. But in general, the Fractal ecosystem powers my guitar tones, and I'm super stoked with it. I do have an Axe FX3 racked up, hooked up to my Apollo interface, and a pair of Atom A7X monitors in here that I use as sort of the core of my system here in the studio. I've also got a Saint Rock React IR2 sitting here behind the record that I use to record all of my amps. I'm in a much smaller space now, so cranking up a cab in here every day isn't really the vibe. I still try to do it every now and then just to immerse myself in all the wonderful guitar noises. But between this, the FM3, the Axe 3, and the AM4, that's covered pretty much every gig that I've done this year. The other piece of gear that I've taken with me to every single gig, and I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that because this lives in my little guitar bag, is this. It's a Nuix B8 wireless system. They actually were kind enough to send this one to me a couple of years ago, and you can probably see from a lot of the grime and gunk on there that, yeah, it's seen a lot so far, this thing. But yeah, I took this with me everywhere last year. I took it with me everywhere this year. Just playing wireless is, once you get used to it, once you get used to the freedom and not tripping over cables, just so nice. And playing a lot of the stages that I play on where either I'm running around like a maniac or there's some circus freaks running around like maniacs on there, having a cable-free setup and cutting down on the clutter is really, really important. This one has worked really well. I have had some dropouts with it at times, but they have never been catastrophic. It's like it'll drop out for 3 seconds and then reset. I like that this little pack sits on here and kind of docks with it so that you can recharge it. So the ritual is do the sound check, make sure everything's working correctly, put it on there to charge, you know, an hour before the gig, it cops a charge, and then you do the gig and get through it. I do have a cable, obviously, that comes out of it that goes into the FM9 Live, and I try to keep a nice long guitar cable on there, one, so that if I have to unplug it, I'm not like bound to being 3 feet away from the FM9, but two, it also means that I'm still getting the cable tone, if you like it, so it's consistent on there. This does have a little switch on here called a cable tone switch, which I'm guessing is just a very subtle filter on there, but no complaints with this one. At some point, I would like to upgrade to a much higher spec wireless system on there, but given the cost of those still, is it worth it? I don't know, maybe I could just get a couple more of these as backups, but yeah, really, really convenient. That, the FM9, straight to front of house, whatever guitar I want to plug into it, happy days. And that kind of covers the things that I use live. Well, except for an expression pedal, I just use a Fractal EV2, which I don't have here. It's in my guitar bag. But speaking of guitar bags, another thing that I took with me everywhere this year, this guitar bag from Mon Custom has been very, very handy. You know, it's the kind of typical mono backpack style thing. I'm not sure what they're reinforcing it with, but it's not as soft as a traditional soft bag. It's still definitely not a hard bag. So if I was flying, I'd use the dedicated case for my guitars, except for my Rubato Lassie. And my trick when I've been touring with 2 guitars is take my main guitar in a hard case, then put the Lassie in here with a bunch of my clothes and toiletries, because the Lassie can definitely survive anything that gets thrown at it in an airport on there being made of carbon fiber. So they kind of live in there. Then when I get to the destination, I'll load my gear in. And for something like, say, Edinburgh Fringe, where we were staying at accommodation, I had to walk into the gig every day. What I'd do is I would put my main guitar in this case and take it home with me, and then the Lassie would live in the dressing room at the gig. So, you know, that way I could play in my room and I had my main guitar with me. I could carry it around really easily. Then when I flew back, main guitar goes in its case. Again, all the dirty undies and the Lassie go in here. Poor Lassie, it's seen way more of me than anyone ever should. The other thing that I like about this as well is, again, for my Bell Aurora, this one actually fits it almost perfectly, almost like it was designed for it. So that sits in there. There is a neck support in there, and there's heaps of extra space on here for like straps. I can actually fit the AM4 in these, which I'm super stoked with. and then I'm good to go. Of course, if I'm playing locally, I don't ever really take a hard case anymore. I just chuck this on here. I believe they're making a dual guitar case as well, which I'm very excited to check out. I've also got one of their backpacks, which I normally keep an FM3 in when I have to grab and go. So again, this is something that went everywhere with me this year. And then finally, some miscellaneous stuff. I've been using the Stringjoy Signature 10 to 52 sets on all my non-Strat guitars. I use the 10 to 46s on my Strats, which I've really been enjoying. Picks are still the, what is this, 1.35 millimeter white Tortex Jazz 3. I have tried a bunch of other picks this year, but I keep coming back to this one. I like the thickness, I like the tone, and I like that it's not too slippery like an old red Jazz 3 or something like that. I used to drop those all the time when I would get sweaty. These, I drop the least, so it means I have it in my hands the most on there. And then another tool that I found incredibly useful is this StewMac relief gauge on here. And this has been invaluable, not just here to set up my guitars and make sure they've maintained their relief, but on tour. It means, say if I go from Australian winter to northern summer or vice versa, that if I play my guitar and I notice something is off, I immediately have a gauge of what's going on with the overall neck relief on there. And especially in this room between summer, which can often be dry, but sometimes be quite humid, and then winter, again, which can be really dry at times or really humid at times in Perth. This just lets me maintain a consistent relief across all of my guitars, and I generally go for between 4 and 5 1/1000ths of an inch on there. So once you get it calibrated, awesome, easy to use. Big shout out to Charles Chillier for recommending this one. They are a little bit pricey, but when you know how to use it, or once you actually get it dialed in, it's absolutely awesome. And what I found was the guitars that I liked playing were in that relief range of 4 to 5 1/1000ths. And then some of the other ones where I was like, oh, this guitar just feels a little bit off. There was either way too much relief or not enough relief on there. So that has definitely been a game changer this year. What else can I tell you about? Deoxit. Always great. There's been so many times where gunk gets into the pots and the jack on my guitars and I go, ugh, I have to pull this thing out and then re-solder it. And then I go, no, just spray a little bit of Deoxit in there and then I'll be good to go. I've been using this lemon oil from Diodario just because it's cheap and widely available from Amazon, and still using the good old Dunlop 65. I just keep these on my desk to keep my guitars clean. That's pretty much it. This is stuff I actually use day in, day out when I'm gigging, when I'm in the studio demoing gear. I obviously have a lovely collection of guitars and amplifiers and pedals, which I also love. What the difference is, though, when it comes to gigging live, when it comes to touring, is it's all about consistency. It's about getting the same tone at every gig, and it is about reliability. I will always choose a piece of gear that, maybe it doesn't have that magic 5% of mojo, but I know it's always going to live in a consistent range when I'm playing live, especially doing some of the gigs that I've been lucky enough to do this year where you're playing in front of a lot of people, there's a lot of pressure, and you have to be on. Like the Ashes gig, we had exactly 2 minutes to play that set. No longer, no later. You're up there, you hear the count in, and you just have to go. So having experiences like that where you don't have to think about the gear is really what it's all about. You just want to soak in the moment and try to live in the moment. In danger of sounding as new age as I look, that really is what music has been for me over the last couple of years. I'm so fortunate in that regard, and I'm so fortunate to have this equipment in my life which facilitates that. At the end of the day, yes, it is just gear, but when I plug it in and it makes beautiful loud guitar noises, those beautiful loud guitar noises make me happy, and I hope they make you happy as well. I'll see you on the next one.
We having a good time right now.